In this video, I'm going to go over both of the geology presentations. There's probably, let's see, I think I've pulled 7 questions out of these, so I'm going to be I'm not going to tell you what the questions are, but I'm going to tell you some things that are definitely not on the exam. Um, so understanding these concepts, source, migration, and a trap is going to be important. Um, the difference between conventional and unconventional is also going to be important. And so this idea of how oil forms and why it forms is important. And then obviously understanding porosity and permeability are going to help you um, figure out some of the answers to the questions. Uh, just getting some of the basic thing like after oil matures in the source rock, it goes upward and migrates, and then hopefully is trapped by or trapped in a trap is the way to go. What happens if there's no trap is also interesting. Uh, Again, this idea of porosity and permeability will always help you. And like I've talked about, the difference between unconventional and conventional is going to be important. So those little diagrams can be very helpful to make sure you understand those. So again, what does it take? Source rock, maturation, which is a function of the depth and the temperature, the ability to migrate, and a trap, some way to seal it off, is important to conventional reservoirs. And answering these questions, I'm sorry to be going back and forth, but sometimes I have to remind myself whether there's a later slide coming up. Being able to answer these questions is important. I'll be honest with you, I don't get into rock types. We all know that sedimentary rocks are what's important for oil and gas, but I don't just get into that a whole lot. I don't get into the differences in sedimentary rocks. Um, just didn't go there with the test questions. And the fact I'm not saying anything on any of these slides is probably a hint. Went through some other slides just to kind of skip over some things, but this idea of basins is important, and the idea of what do they need to know before they begin to, or how do they make an exploration decision is also important. Again, these examples, the specifics of these examples are not important. Again, these are just the basic questions that are always there, and so it's very good to be very familiar with these and these sorts of tools as they evaluate it. Nothing in there obviously about any of these um, the logs. Interesting map, but I hope one you're already familiar with. You should already be familiar with this map as well. If you're not, this is a nice way to augment the map that I had in our presentation. We tried to look at some stuff in Texas, the Maybe Field, nothing specifically, nor on the Barnett Shale. This idea of the life of a reservoir is important, conventional versus unconventional, heterogeneous versus homogeneous, how much oil you get out typically of a field, or all things that he talked about that would be also important. And so again, here is the topics that are very important. And I'm going to stop the tape and then switch presentations. Again, these were very good reviews in this idea of conventional versus unconventional. Didn't talk specifically, or no questions specifically about the specifics of these. Again, we saw that slide before. This slide also has a lot of key concepts, as does this slide. the impact of sparse data obviously was a key theme of Dr. Meadows' presentation. And I'm going to be honest with you, a lot of these slides in the second night of presentations I thought were great points, but the slides, he walked through a lot of slides very quickly. Again, this idea of heterogeneity versus homogeneity is important. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. We're going to scroll through a lot of slides on the types of logs, mud logging, open hole, and cased hole. I just didn't go there because I didn't feel like he was drawing so many distinctions that we needed to be directly familiar with the different types. It is important to understand what mud logging is versus the others, but I didn't get into how you interpret these. Knowing the types of wireline well logging is important, but I do not ask you questions about specifically these sorts of things of what can you get from this type of log or that type of log. So a lot of this stuff is truly important, but I just didn't test it because I think this is the sort of thing you would be able to refer to when you get into it. I talked about this slide, so I looked at this slide very carefully to see whether I could do anything with it. I'm like, I can't even read that slide, so never mind. The coring, the idea of what do you get from a core is important, and just how cores are such a key part of the, they're one of the few knowns that you really get where this is how you can no kidding measure stuff directly. That's important. Did not get into the differences of these different types of deposits in the exam. Again, it's just, if you just look through these slides, you're going to pick up some of the things that are probably going to help you remember some of the specifics in the other slides. So I encourage you just to look at them, but I did not ask any specific questions like explain a deltaic deposit. And again, he talked about that most of the oil is found in the carbonate reservoirs rather, and even it's right down there on the chart. But beyond that, didn't get into the specifics of the carbonate reservoirs. And that was the second. Obviously, don't have time to make a video off the third class, but I would say if you would expect 3 to 4 questions out of the last presentation Dr. Meadows is going to get, you're probably going to be right on point. That's it. Good luck.